Notice, in accordance with the new copy regulations, this episode of Quoth the Raven is intended for ages 16 and up. Also, the content we sometimes feature on this show is kid-friendly. The context of the episode is to address adults and inform them of said content for them to research as consumers in service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well, rated TV 16 and up. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm the host, Lewis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, artist, and editor of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it is Friday, June 18th, and that means another edition of Friday Night Features, and tonight's theme is supernatural superheroes. By that, we kind of mean monsters as heroes, or superheroes that aren't necessarily in superhero tights but have supernatural abilities and are acting in heroic ways. So it's been kind of a rough last 12 to 16 hours for me. Had my second COVID shot yesterday, and it basically started to kick my butt around 4:30 this morning. Luckily, my fever broke about an hour ago, so I'm feeling a little better. So hopefully we'll be able to go through things okay and not have any issues. But let's go ahead and get started with the reviews tonight. I'm going to start with the movie Fast Color from 2018, directed by Julia Hart, produced by Jordan Horowitz, Mickey Liddell, and Pete Shalaimon. I don't know. Shalaimon, I think is how it's pronounced. Written by Julia Hart and Jordan Horowitz, starring Juju Mabatha-Raw, Lorraine Toussaint, Sanaya Sidney, Christopher Denham, and David Strathairn. Production companies are LD Entertainment and Original Headquarters, distributed by Lionsgate and Co. Black Films. This was originally released in March 10th, 2018, at the San Antonio Southwest Film Festival, and then had a national release on April 19th, 2019. It's supernatural fantasy, science fiction, superhero type storyline, and it has a running time of 1 hour and 42 minutes, rated PG-13. And what it's about. In a future American Midwest, it has not rained for 8 years. And Ruth, Juju Mabatha-Raw, is a homeless wanderer whose seizures trigger supernatural earthquakes. As she travels to her old family home, she meets Bill, played by Christopher Denham, a diner customer who is in actuality a scientist attempting to capture her for study. Bill tricks her into accepting a ride with him and then attempts to draw blood samples from her, but she wounds him and flees in the direction of her home. Bill is forced to abandon his vehicle to seek medical aid, and the local sheriff Ellis, played by David Strathairn, they find the vehicle, and it's got blood all over the place and stuff because when she wounded him, she shot the guy. So it looks pretty serious. Anyway, Ruth arrives at home, and she reunites with her mother, Bo, played by Lorraine Toussaint. And Bo has the ability to telekinetically disintegrate objects and reassemble them, and see vibrant flashes known as the colors. Bo has been taking care of Ruth's daughter, Lila, Sanaya Sidney, who has the same powers as Bo, but has no memories of her mother because her mother had left her as an infant, and I'll explain why in a minute. After Ruth accidentally sets off another earthquake, Lila is introduced to her, and they explain that Ruth's powers deteriorated in her childhood, becoming destructive and causing her to turn to alcohol and drugs to try and stop the seizures and ultimately abandon her family. Lila and Bo attempt to train Ruth on reconnecting with her old powers, while the scientists, Bill and Sheriff, both investigate Ruth's trail. When Ellis discerns that Ruth is back home, he covertly signals Bo, his longtime friend and lover, to warn her about the scientist that is searching for their daughter. yes, the sheriff and her mother. Basically, the sheriff is the father. The next morning, Bill begins heading for the woman's house, and Ruth takes off in the family truck to escape him, leaving Bo and Lila behind. Unfortunately, the truck doesn't have any gas and it runs out of gas, so she has to, leave her truck and go get gasoline. Um, and she has another seizure, and she finally has the memory of why she left her daughter behind, more or less. She relives the memory of her nearly drowning her then infant daughter during a past seizure episode, where her powers broke the plumbing in an underground room, and I guess in the seizure she knocked the baby off the bed into the water, and she managed to get the kid out and save her, but she didn't trust herself anymore to be a good mom and take care of her daughter. That's why she left her baby with her mother and then went off. But having that memory basically emotionally heals her mind, and it triggers her powers anew, which allows her to see the colors for the first time, and it gives her the ability to cause the sky to rain again. Ruth returns home, where Sheriff Ellis informs her that Bill and his accomplices have kidnapped Lila. Ruth goes to rescue her, followed by Ellis and Bo, and at the sheriff's office where Lila is being held, Ruth creates a storm and panics Bill and his guards. Bo offers herself to the scientists in exchange for Lila, who is then reunited with her mother, and the mother and daughter escape in the truck, and they find a note from Bo telling them to head for Rome, Italy, to find another woman that she used to know who had the same powers as Ruth. My thoughts are that this is an exceptionally well-made film. There are several flaws in the plot that, if you have your thinking cap on, might make you question things, but the plot is pretty straightforward overall. We never get to find out who Bill works for or what exactly it is they want Ruth for. You can make assumptions. I mean, it's always, dark, shady government. They want to, control these people and weaponize them and stuff like that, but it's never really explained. We just really know that he's just some sort of government scientist and a total fucking creep. And I say that quite frankly because the character is a total fucking creep character, which is not the actor's fault. The actor's doing a good job playing this character, but the character is just so creepy, it's not funny. There are other elements to this character. Meaning Ruth, that make me think that the writers were thinking of Ruth as their version of Aurora Monroe, Storm of the X-Men. She has mild claustrophobic instances triggered by her incident where Lila almost drowned as a baby. The Aurora color pattern she eventually sees in the sky and the energy pattern she sees through the sky would be akin to Aurora being able to see her set's weather patterns. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Ruth's past as a teenager, than being told she was a recovering drug addict and alcoholic that relied on these substances to dull her abilities because she didn't know how to control them. And I think in part because we're told instead of shown, that might be part of why the movie did not do that well at the box office and only earned a little over $76,000. That being said, I do think it's a very sadly misjudged and overlooked film. The themes of women taking awareness and control of their inner power, the themes of family across 3 generations of women, the subtlety and nuance of character instead of bombastic special effects, and letting the characters drive the story forward was well chosen. Juju Mbatha-Raw is a sorely overlooked performer as well. She has a very quiet, nuanced performance in this film, but it's just very well done. I hope that she gets noticed as Ravonna Alexis Renslayer in the new Loki series on Disney Plus that has just recently launched, because this woman has been doing a lot of great work in film as of late, and we haven't been hearing nearly enough about her. Of course, Lorraine Toussaint is actually also an excellent actress, multiple award winner. Has been in everything from Law and Order to playing the lead in Orange Is the New Black. Um, she does. Both these characters that they play are very quiet, self-restrained, trying their best not to draw attention to themselves so that their powers aren't triggered or revealed to the public. But they both carry a certain gravitas about them that presents well. Like they have, you can tell that they're not women you want to mess with. They have a certain, um, yeah, there's just something about the way they act that you can tell that they're, you know, they command respect. And they also hold their inner strengths and personal demons within. And Sanaya Sidney will probably be an actress worth following in the future as well. She was already in films such as Hidden Figures and Fences, um, and she has recently been cast to portray tennis star Venus Williams in a biopic coming out in November later this year. So, it's probably going to be, she does a nice job here as well. Definitely worth your time. Recommended for ages 14 and up. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Now, part of the reason I say that one's kind of a supernatural one is because it seems like it's a supernatural effects for what they do, especially Ruth's abilities. It feels more supernatural than psychic. Um, Whereas Bo and Lila's is more, perhaps more psychic in a way because of the way they do the powers and stuff. But um, it's very interesting how the film progresses and shows you um, Ruth's character progression. Obviously, she's gotten sober. She's trying to reconnect with her family, get her daughter back, and yet she still has fear of losing control of herself. Um, like I said, the only thing really missing is we didn't really get to see enough of her in her state where she was um, not sober, so we could see more of why she did what she did. We get it, with the scene with the drowning scene. We understand why she did it, but um, I just would like to see a little bit more of that. Maybe one or two, scenes, and maybe there was something filmed, but it was probably cut for time. At an hour and 42 minutes, I'm not sure what kind of a scene they could have had um, that would have gotten everything across and still been set up, uh, paced well within the film and still have stuff for time. So that might be why it's not there. But overall, very enjoyable film. Our next item is Legacies, complete first season on DVD. Executive producers are Julie Plec, Brett Matthews, Leslie Morgenstein, and Gina Girolamo. There's various directors and producers and writers, including Plec and Matthews. It stars Danielle Rose Russell, Aria Shagasemi, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Kaylee Bryant, Jenny Boyd, Quincy Faust, Peyton Alex Smith, Matt Davis, Chris Deshaun Lee, Ben Levin, and Leo Howard. It's supernatural adventure teen drama. It originally aired on TV in 2018. 45 minutes per episode, 675 minutes for the entire season of 16 episodes. The DVD is not rated, but it is rated TV 14 according to the network. So we'll assume that it's 14 and up. And what it's about. The series surrounds Hope Michelson. That's the lead person in the front. Daughter of Klaus Michelson, Haley Marshall, who is descended from some of the most powerful vampire, werewolf, and witch bloodlines. This is a spin-off. It takes 2 years after the events of the series, the originals, and 17-year-old Hope attends the Salvatore School for the Young and Gifted. The school provides a haven where supernatural beings can learn to control their abilities and impulses. She and her fellow classmates, including the Gemini witch twins Josie and Lizzie Saltzman, Milton M.G. Greeley, who's a vampire, Raphael, a recently triggered werewolf who went through the foster system, and Raphael's adopted brother Landon Kirby, who seems human but will eventually turn out to be his own unique being. Well, they go through their own personal trials and tribulations as teenagers while battling monsters who are appearing out of myth and legend via the sinister entity known as Malivore. My thoughts is basically, again, the series is technically a spinoff from the aforementioned originals, which is a spinoff of the Vampire Diaries. Neither of those two shows I've ever watched, so I'm not, I had no background on this show. The good news is you don't have to have watched those shows to get into the series. Ultimately, this show is basically Supernatural meets Teen Titans or X-Men. The Salvatore School for Young and Gifted, yeah, okay, Professor Xavier's School for Young and the Gifted. They have to, of course, they're learn how to control their power so that they can blend into a society that has proven itself to despise them and even be willing to kill them. Yeah, we know where this is going. We know this is, this is X-Men with monsters. Hope Michelson is basically Jean Grey with attitude. Cute, red hair, every guy and probably half the girls crushing on her. But because she holds abilities from all three major camps, witch, werewolf, and vampire, she's an outsider who, despite having some friends, is something of a loner and is often tasked to do things as a solo adventurer or with the head schoolmaster, Alaric Saltzman, also known as Rupert Giles meets Professor X. Rick's daughters, Josie and Lizzie, are witches learning their abilities as well, but they're under a curse called the Merge. Whereas Gemini twins, on their 22nd birthday, they are destined to fight each other in a test of wills, and one will destroy and absorb the other. That's a fairly strong arc in the storyline, and both characters are likable enough and annoying enough in their own ways that you can care about them and decide, well, are you team Josie or are you team Lizzie for who you want to see gets, merged into the other one. Meanwhile, new students Raphael and Landon come to the school. Raph, they do know as a werewolf, but there doesn't seem to be any supernatural element or abilities about Landon, and that means he doesn't really belong at the school, but then there's other things going on. They say, well, maybe he does belong at the school, and it turns out that the key to the season is discovering just who or what he is as he plays a key role in connection to the big bad of the season, Malivore, who was a supernatural entity from the 16th century, a golem who has effectively absorbed the abilities of hundreds of supernatural beings and spits them out anew to seek out Landon and capture him. The monsters of the week, dangers of the week, are very much akin to the early Buffy Vampire Slayer show from the 90s, maybe with a little more pizzazz than what Buffy did in its early seasons, because they've had Buffy, and they've had Charmed, and they've had Angel, and they've had the Vampire Diaries, and they've had the originals, and all these other various shows that have set us standards. They know, okay, here's a standard, we have to try and go above that. So they have a little more pizzazz with it, but they're also doing what's already been done. In that regard, I don't really think the show is all that groundbreaking. I do think that the writing is done fairly in earnest, and the cast does an exceptional job, at least keeping me interested in what's going on, particularly Danielle Rose Russell as Hope, and Kelly Bryant and Ginny Boyd as Josie and Lizzie. But there are clearly derivative ideas in episodes that feel like the writing staff is just recycling stories from Buffy or Angel, and that does distract me as I watch the show. There's a group called Triad Industries, which is effectively a government agency akin to the Initiative in Buffy. The relationships and the quirks and the shifts between the characters, the teens especially, are reminiscent to what Joss Whedon and crew did on his teen hero stories as well. But that having been said, the cast is strong enough to hold my interest for the entire season and did make me want to check out the second season. So obviously they did something right. It's worth watching as a binge show, I think. I wouldn't necessarily call it appointment TV, though. Had this come out back in the 90s when Buffy and Charm originally came out on the WB or CW, then yeah, I probably would have said yes, it's appointment TV. But because we've just seen so many of these kinds of shows, I just feel like I'm watching the next generation's versions of what I watched 25 years ago. That being said, it is very well done and it is enjoyable. It is TV 14, recommended 14 up, and I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Legacy Season 2, uh, the end of the last season, the characters, they faced off a variety of different and monsters and mythological creatures. They faced off against a dragon, a gargoyle, a dryad, the headless horseman. These are just different creatures that the Malavor character set out after landing Kirby. But they found out that Malavor has a shocking connection to Landon. I don't want to give that connection away. For those who haven't seen it, it's pretty. It's not like it's shocking or anything, but I don't want to like. If I say what it is, it kind of gives away some of the story, and I don't want to do that. But Hope Michelson, the only tribrid in existence, they call her a tribrid because she's part vampire, part werewolf, and part witch. She sacrificed herself to save the boy and the school she loves by throwing herself into the pit of Malavor, hoping that her unique, one-of-a-kind tribrid self will counter the supernatural entity and stop its releasing of monsters into our world. But by doing so, she has wiped herself from the memory of all. But for whatever reasons, Malavor can't withstand Hope's presence inside their dimension, so she gets expelled months later to find herself faced with the decision of trying to get back to her friends and loved ones, or to try and fight the monsters alone as Malavor starts spitting them out again. Meanwhile, more monstrous threats come to the school, and Rick Saltzman is replaced as the headmaster of the school by a Professor Vardamus before the position is given back to Rick after it is revealed that an imposter had taken Vardamus's form. Agent Ryan Clark of the Triad was pretending to be Vardamus, and he's something else entirely as well. He's not just a Triad agent. He has a connection to Landon and Malavor as well. The real Vardamus then becomes an adjunct teacher at the school. Vardamus happens to be played by Alexei Denisov, better known as Wesley Wyndham Price III from Buffy and Angel. Again, that kind of draws you right back to that whole we've been here, done that thing in a way. But it is what it is. The evil Vardamus, however, Ryan Clark Vardamus, tricks Josie into tapping into dark magic. And, well, we get to see the whole Dark Willow, Dark Mage, Phoenix shtick that we already saw in Buffy once more. And they also reuse the in-fight ring motif that was used in Charm. In Charm, when they have Josie try to force the merge early upon her sister Lizzie, and we see Hope and then Lizzie fight Josie. Don't get me wrong, it's all well executed enough. And if I hadn't already seen it before on these other shows, I know I would have loved it. But instead I'm going, I've been there. I've seen that. And that kind of makes me sad because I really feel like this cast could do even more than they're doing if they were given some more original and unique storylines. They are very talented cast. So if I have to give the show any criticism, that's where it lies, is in the stories. They're just too derivative. There was a lot more gimmick episodes this season. They had an 80s motif episode in conjunction with video games. I'm sorry, kids that are 18 years old are probably not going to remember Frogger from the 80s today. I don't think so. But that's something, that they're, remember Frogger? We got to figure out how to do this so we don't get in trouble. We got to play it like Frogger. Okay, whatever. I'm not saying, maybe they do have Frogger today. I don't know. But it just seemed like that was not something they would know about necessarily. They did a really bad moment with Rick and Josie being trapped in a prison dimension with the person who killed Josie's biological mother. That person makes a Hunger Games reference. There's a problem with that. Josie's 17 or 18 years old, and the Hunger Games are only 12 years old as a book. And this person was sent to the magical otherworld prison before Josie was even born. She and Lizzie were magically spelled and carried by a surrogate mother when their biological mother was murdered by this guy. So he's trapped in this other dimensional world with nothing but 3 other killer students. Now, maybe the other students knew what the book was before they were sent in, and they were sent in a good 8 to 10 years before the current storyline. But then one of them might have made the Hunger Games reference, not him. The older guy should not have any idea what the hell Hunger Games is. So there's little things like that they're trying too hard to be pop culture referential, I think, at times. And I wish they would stop doing that, because it kind of dates your show, and it kind of messes things up a little bit, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So little things like that knocked this season down a bit from the first season for me. Again, don't get me wrong. I think the cast does a great job of what they're being given. But the writers really need to stop recycling other people's stuff. Granted, it's cool and unique to those who aren't familiar with these earlier source materials. I think the show is clearly geared for a younger generation than I. But when they do the 80s night episode, then they're trying to call my generation into it and say, hey, you should like this too. And that's fine and well, but then you still have to give us something fresh. And I just don't see where they were doing that as much as they should have been. Now, I just finished watching these, and I have not even looked at season 3, and I don't know if I will yet. It just so happens that the show airs on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., which is I usually have my roundtable discussions. And the season 3 finale is actually next week. And I haven't watched any of the season finale episodes, or pardon me, any of the season 3 episodes. So probably what I will end up doing if I watch it is when the library gets the 3rd season on DVD, I'll binge watch it again. I looked on the CW to see if I could binge the season. I can only watch like the last 5 episodes of the season, which is not good. There's 16 episodes. I'm going to miss 11 episodes to watch the last third of the season. So again, I'll just have to wait until it comes out at the library and binge watch the entire season as I did with these 2 sets. So I certainly won't tell you that the show isn't worth watching, because it is. I just think you have to go in knowing that there's a lot of stuff that many of us have seen before. And it boils down to whether or not you like the cast. I happen to like the cast. Some people might not. People might roll their eyes at the storylines and it won't work for them. But, like I said, I think really the cast is what carries the show in this one. And really, if you stop and think about it, it's the cast that carries Buffy. It's the cast that carries Angel. Because when you stop and start actually thinking about the storylines for those shows, those had a lot of flaws and silly stuff that shouldn't have worked either. So it is what it is. Okay. That's pretty much it for tonight, believe it or not. Pretty quick show. It's been, like I said, kind of a long day. I was planning on doing a live draw this weekend with the vault sale. Unfortunately, I had my second COVID shot yesterday, and it started kicking my butt around 4:30 in the morning. And while I'm feeling a little bit better now, I'm told I might get another wave. So, we'll wait and see. But I make no promises that I'll be back tomorrow. I will definitely be back on Monday, though. So, with that being said, if you want to reach me, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven. At Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can see some of my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis BrightRaven on YouTube. You can email me questions or comments or suggestions on something you might want me to talk about on the show. Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com. And if I don't happen to get back in touch with you there, you can always try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. Monday is our comics news and reviews. Wednesdays is when I tell you what I got this week from the comic shop or what I got in the mail from crowdfunding or other titles. Thursday nights is our roundtable talk where I have guests and we have different topics of discussion. And Fridays is our genre night. Each week is a different genre, sometimes with guests, sometimes not. I don't know what next week's show is going to be just yet. Again, Saturdays and Sundays is usually when I have my live draw. I don't think I'll be doing it this weekend because of how I feel. Like I said, I'm feeling better than I was earlier today, but it kind of comes and goes. The good news is that my fever broke, but I'm still having a little bit of body chills and stuff, so we'll see. So that's pretty much it for tonight. And we'll see you guys, possibly tomorrow, but most likely on Monday. So if I don't see you guys tomorrow, have a safe and pleasant weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And we'll see you next time.